Hello, anybody who's watching this, welcome to my reaction to Unbiased History Rome 9. I forgot how to pronounce that correctly. Let's say Augustus again, because that's what comes into my mind. The first emperor, uh, Augustus. Nah, I don't remember. That's about it. That's about all I want to say. Just the title. I have no ideas of anything. Last one was about Kaiser, Caesar, whatever you want. And this is about that guy. So we'll see how that goes. The first emperor, it's very intriguing. So, if you want to help out the channel, there's a donation link in the description below. You can, besides sending me some money for help, and you can recommend me a video, or you can also do that in the comment section below. Also subscribe, blah blah blah. Let's begin. I don't know how large should I make it then. I guess, I don't know.
Pain, sadness, betrayal. Only the gods may ever know exactly what Caesar felt as he bled on the Senate's floor. But among all the uncertainties his assassination raised for Rome, these were certain. The Senate was dominated by treacherous murderers, the barbarians ready to strike, and its people hid in their homes, awaiting the coming decades of violence, death, and decadence. It was in this world that our hero found himself in. His tale began during the year of Cicero and Hybrida, for while Caesar was feeling disgusted by the tyranny shown by the Senate, his niece, Adia, had given birth to a son, named Gaius Octavius Furinius. With his father dying Nola when he was just 4 years old, and his new stepfather never giving a single shit about him, Octavian was raised by his grandmother Julia, the elder sister of Julius Caesar, whom Octavian would greatly impress as he delivered her eulogy years later. Octavian later joined the College of Pontiffs, where he met and befriended Marcus Agrippa, a plebeian of unrivaled strength and military skill, and Gaius Maecenas, an equestrian experienced in Roman politics. With their help, Augustus...
People that are drawn that way don't have any aren't anything good. I noticed the lightning on the side, I guess. Jupiter is coming along.
compensated for the poor health the gods gave him in exchange for such a high intellect, making him very prone to illnesses, which he refused to let hold him back. Growing up during the Civil War, it wasn't long before he heard Caesar was off to fight in Africa to let hold him back. Growing up
How to smell Eastern magic.
During the Civil War, it wasn't long before he heard Caesar was off to fight in Africa. He implored to join him, but was held back by his overprotective mother. When Caesar returned, Octavius approached him for the first time. He told him Agrippa's brother had fought in Cato's army, and so asked for his pardon. Caesar readily granted his wish, and Agrippa was so thankful he would become his most loyal friend. Later, as Caesar was preparing to fight in Hispania, Octavian managed to convince his mother to let him go, only for him to be struck by an illness and then get shipwrecked in enemy territory after recovering. By then, Caesar had just won the Battle of Munda, and when he found out Octavian had braved the countryside to find him, he was convinced his nephew was destined for greatness. He then sent Octavian to study in Macedonia, returning to Rome, where, not long after, he would find himself getting stabbed 27 times by the Senate. Which begs the question, where the fuck was Mark Antony during all that?
28 stab wounds.
Actually, Brutus never went after him. He still had some shreds of dignity in his treacherous heart. Shame the Senate didn't. Once Antony realized he wasn't in danger, as consul, he took hold of Caesar's will. In it, he was posthumously adopting Octavian as his son and heir, inheriting his name and fortune. He rushed to inform Octavian about it, and it was at this moment that Cleopatra attacked. You see, Cleopatra had made use of all that semen Caesar had pumped into her, absorbing his divine essence and using it to fuel her Eastern black magic, which she used to cast a mind control spell on Antony, the one she saw as the surest way to take power over Rome and destroy Aeneas' legacy once and for all. Now a puppet of Cleopatra.
Okay. Magic, sure. Why not? It started with mythology, so why not magic? Okay.
Antony brought the assassins to the table and negotiate. They were to be pardoned of their crimes, and Caesar's reforms left intact. He also agreed not to talk ill of the assassins to the plebs, as he was to host his funeral oration. But when the day came, and the sight of his dead friend hit his eyes, Cleopatra's spell temporarily broke. Enraged once more, but still a man of his word, Antony didn't badmouth the Senate, but simply reminded the plebs of all the great things Caesar did for them, and Rome at large, letting the assassin's actions speak for themselves. The plebs were driven by Antony's eulogy, running through the streets to sack and burn all property belonging to any of Caesar's assassins, and were then forced to flee the city scared for their lives. By then, the news of Caesar's death had reached Octavian, together with his last wishes. His mother begged him not to accept the adoption. His friends advised him to take the Macedonian legions and march on Rome. But when destiny came calling for Octavian, neither cowardice nor pure violence would suffice. Through cunning and virtue, he saw his duty to ensure his adoption.
Yeah, but the more I look at these videos and see these well done Minecraft buildings, I want to play Minecraft. God damn it.
His mind made, Octavian sailed to Brundisium with his friends, there meeting with Caesar's veteran legions, who were preparing for the Parthian campaign. Being recognized as Caesar's chosen heir, the legions hailed him as their new leader. This allowed Octavian to get to Rome. And what did he find when he got there? That Antony, Caesar's best friend, was dancing between hating and allying with the Senate. Octavian could smell that Eastern magic was in the air, and instantly realized Cleopatra was behind
Good thing he read the book about sniffing Eastern magic. Perfect.
this. Octavian openly denounced Antony's pardon of the Senate, driving more of Caesar's veterans to his side, including 2 of the Macedonian legions. Seeing where the wind was blowing, Cicero denounced Antony in a series of scathing orations, driving public opinion to Octavian's side. With just how powerful Octavian was becoming, Cleopatra ordered her servants to change strategy. Mark Antony then renounced his pardon of the Senate, banishing them from Rome, and ordering it to give him Cisalpine Gaul to govern, instead of Macedonia. Antony then marched north with his last 3 legions to force Cisalpine Gaul's governor to abdicate, a one named Decimus Brutus, who violently refused to abdicate. The Senate then declared Antony an enemy of the state, sending both consuls Pansa and Hirtius to defeat him. They didn't have enough legions, so they called on Octavian to join forces with them. Wait, hold the fuck on. Octavian joining his Caesarian legionnaires to help the Senate rescue Caesar's assassin from Caesar's best friend and his Caesarian legionnaires? Well, you might not see it now, pleb, but it was all part of Octavian's master plan to save Rome.
Get an army, fuck the Senate, avenge Caesar, kill the witch. Yeah. Lacrum. Does Lacrum means profit? No.
And so he marched with the Senate north. And
Okay,
before
that's
Pansa
good.
could join his forces,
I did not expect him to go off with the Senate, to be fair. To be honest. But if he did, that would be like, okay. But it would be weird if he betrayed
Hirtius and Octavian, Antony suddenly ambushed him,
Antony.
obliterating his forces and severely injuring Pansa, only for then to be his turn to be ambushed by Hirtius, who then almost obliterated his forces. Antony then retreated to siege Decimus and Mutina, where Hirtius and Octavian faced him again. As they charged Octavian's camp, Hirtius was killed in the midst of fighting, with Octavian personally rescuing his body away from the battle. At the end of the day, Antony's army was scattered, with him fleeing north of the Alps to link with Lepidus. Decimus instantly set pursuit, but Octavian just chilled with his 8 legions. Abandoned, Decimus found himself locked between the Alps, Antony's and Lepidus' legions, and hostile Gallic tribes. Not long after, a Gallic chieftain delivered Decimus' head to Antony, who then received a letter from Octavian, wishing for them to talk. The 3 Caesarians later met, abandoning their past differences and forming the Second Triumvirate, with the goal to avenge Caesar's murder and carry on his legacy. The first order of business regarded the Senate, whom, everyone agreed, needed nothing short of a massive purge. Drafting a list of 300 senators to kill, the triumvirs took control of Rome, running a senatorial killing spree and appropriating their wealth. Among the killed were Cicero, who later had his hands chopped off and posted on the forum by Antony, just like a true Caesarian would.
Yeah, I wanted to say
with the
that.
remaining senators now being a combination of the ones Caesar appointed earlier and the ones too cowardly to object, the Senate proclaimed the Second Triumvirate a legal institution that gave all 3 members dictatorial authority. To challenge the rule, both Brutus and Cassius had amassed 100,000 legionnaires.
Like, on this map, are those islands not part of Rome? Or islands on the right? Is there no red?
Macedonia. To confront them, Lepidus agreed to fork over 7 of his legions to Antony and Octavian. And yeah, he just agreed to doing that. No ifs or buts. Some
it's not even
just
Italy.
servile
That's
by
Italy.
nature. When the triumvirs landed on Greece, the liberators blockaded their supply lines, hoping to starve the troops out as they held on their fortifications between mountains and swamps. But it was through those very swamps that Mark Antony attacked, surprising Cassius' legions and taking over their camp. And when he heard that Brutus had taken over,
He still has yellow eyes. Is he under the control of Cleopatra in the
the
scenario.
triumvirs' abandoned camps, he killed himself out of pure spite. Anthony then clashed with Brutus, routing him to the nearest hill, where, defeated, he realized just how much of a traitorous bastard he was, and then killed himself out of shame. After the battle, Octavian cut off Brutus's head and threw it at the feet of a statue of Julius Caesar, his death now finally avenged. The triumvirate victorious, the Republic's provinces were divided among the free men, with Gaul agreed to be left alone. And wait a fucking minute, who the fuck gave his planet to Lepidus? Yeah, that's right. But there was still the question of Sextus Pompey, who had re-emerged after taking control of both Sicily and the senatorial fleet, using it to blockade Italy from grain supplies. And now Octavian was left ruling between hungry plebs demanding wheat to his right, veteran legionnaires demanding retirement lands to his left, and Sextus Pompey dabbing at his boats at the coast. All while Cleopatra had Anthony licking her feet, and Lepidus watched paint dry in Africa, or whatever the dude did. Despite these difficulties, Octavian still honored his dead great-uncle, raising him to the status of a god, thus making Octavian Divi Filius, the son of a god. He then held a big party to celebrate the gods, dressing himself as Apollo, the old Trojan sun deity of logic and reason, whom Octavian held an expectable affinity for. But after that, Antony's wife and brother threw a revolt and took over Rome, overthrowing Octavian and finally killing...
You what, mate?
Anthony himself didn't seem to care about his wife's death, though. I wonder why.
Yeah.
But what happened next, he was really forced to care. The governor of Gaul had recently died, and the legions dared then declare their allegiance to Octavian's banner. This sudden change in the power scale triggered Cleopatra, and thus Anthony, to no end. She immediately sent her slave to invade Italy, ally with Sextus and kill Octavian, whom had actually just married Sextus' aunt-in-law, so that didn't really work out. Also, when the legions met at Brundisium, they simply refused to fight Octavian. Left hanging by their armies, Cleopatra then had no choice but to have Anthony renew the second triumvirate, sealing it with a marriage of Octavian's sister, Octavia, to the recently widowed Anthony. And what about Sextus? Well, Octavian allowed him to keep his islands to lift the blockade, later pardoning all exiled Roman families since Fulvius Chimp out. Among these included Tiberius Claudius Nero. An extremely auspicious name, isn't it? But chill, he wasn't any of the three people you just imagined right now. Although his son was. But it's his wife we're gonna talk about, Livia Drusilla, whom, after personally meeting Octavian...
I didn't mention shit, I only mentioned Nero from Devil May Cry 4. That's how my memory goes. I don't know. Should I remember the name?
Instantly fell in love, divorced her husband, and convinced Octavian to get on with her. He seemed into it, so divorced Scribonia just after she gave birth to his daughter Julia, and married Livia just after her second son Drusus was born. And yeah, I know, names. This is the Julio-Claudian dynasty, you pleb, get used to it. But peace didn't last long, as Sextus, unhappy over just ruling the islands he had re-established the blockade of Italy, destroying Octavian's fleet shortly after. To deal with Sextus once and for all, Octavian had Agrippa, by then governor of Gaul, elected as consul, whom proceeded to cut through a lake near Naples and forming an inner harbor, training a new fleet of bigger, stronger ships to face Sextus. The years passed, and the second triumvirate was renovated, this time sealed by a military exchange, 120 of Antony's ships for 4 of Octavian's legions. Why Octavian needed more ships we already know, but what's with Anthony, Cleopatra needing more legions? To invade Parthia, of course, with 100,000 men, 25,000 of which would freeze to death in the Armenian mountain ranges as their siege weapons were destroyed and the legions were forced to retreat. Seeing how stupidly Cleopatra was wasting her men's lives, Octavian never bothered delivering those 4 legions. Instead, he coordinated a combined attack with Agrippa and Lepidus to take down Sextus. As Agrippa's newly trained ships faced Sextus' main fleet, both Lepidus and Octavian invaded the island, taking town after town. And after Agrippa crushed his fleet in the Battle of Naulochus, Sextus fled once more, this time to Anatolia, where he was executed without trial by its local governor. And that was that. The blockade of Italy was lifted, Sicily finally taken, and... wait, is this serious? Lepidus actually tried to claim the island for himself?
Curb your enthusiasm now, it's copyrightable. Every video is fucking copyrightable. No, stop, stop, no. Stop, please, I don't want to talk anymore.
Life as Pontifex Maximus in rural Italy with his family, doing what he did best. Absolutely nothing.
Okay, it's gone.
The Republic's provinces were now divided between...
Fucking, he uses like one song in every video now that's copyrighted, and every video gets copyrighted. I'd rather my video gets copyrighted by the Wahati, like because I'm using his content for my own. So that wouldn't make me mad at all, but just because of the random 5 second fucking song and all the revenue doesn't go neither to him nor to me. I hate
Octavian's
that
west
shit.
and Anthony's east, and just at the border between them, Octavian carried out a series of campaigns in Pannonia, annexing it into Illyricum. Keep that overall image in mind. Will be relevant in like 5 episodes. But what's relevant right now
Okay,
was
I'll
just how
forget.
tight Cleopatra's grip on Anthony had become.
If you said 5 minutes, that would have been pushing it.
Not only had Anthony completely squared his wife Octavian in favor of Cleopatra, but he had several children with her, celebrated triumphs outside Rome, and dressed, lived, and spoke like an Egyptian. What's more, Octavian managed to get a copy of Anthony's will after his death, and when he saw it for the first time, he wasn't sure if he should laugh, explode in anger, or outright vomit, so he just read it to the Senate. In what would later be remembered as the Gibbs of Alexandria, Anthony proclaimed his will to... Wait, scratch that. Anthony proclaimed his will to have Cleopatra and her children inherit all of Rome's eastern provinces, with Cleopatra being claimed Queen of Kings, and her son with Caesar, King of Kings. Outraged at how Cleopatra had made Anthony betray the Roman people, with the Second Triumvirate now expired once more, the Senate declared war on her. To start out hostilities, Cleopatra and her slave Anthony sailed to Greece to later invade Italy. But stopping them short was Agrippa, whom, together with his veteran sailors, had crushed Anthony's allied fleets and cornered them into Actium. Cleopatra then eagerly awaited behind the front lines for an opportunity to attack, but her battle plans had been uncovered by Octavian, whom ordered Agrippa to hold his position. With her legions defecting to Octavian's side more and more, Cleopatra ordered Anthony to attack. What ensued was nothing short of a massacre. Agrippa's veteran sailors completely annihilated Cleopatra's fleet, and seeing that defeat was imminent, she cowardly fled the battle through a gap in the lines, followed by her slave all the way back to Egypt. The war was lost. Cleopatra could do nothing but order Anthony to muster as many troops as possible before Octavian's arrival, but with all of his generals and troops defecting, there was no point. Unwilling to lift her spell over him, she had him fall on his own sword. But Cleopatra, being a woman, really sucked at suicide, so she just watched Anthony wail in agony for a while before he died. A last moment of...
What do you mean her being a woman she sucked at suicide? There was a dude, like last episode or an episode before that, who had to stab himself multiple times before he actually passed out and then died.
Entertainment before her own time came. Not much later came Octavian, meeting with Cleopatra to discuss the terms of her surrender. In a last-ditch effort, she tried to cast her demonic spells on him, but as the divine descendant of Aeneas, Octavian was completely immune to her eastern tricks, later having her son Caesarion killed, thus depriving her of her last political asset. Unable to cope with being bested by Aeneas' progeny once again, Dido's reincarnation, now aware of her incompetence at suicide, simply let herself be bit by a venomous snake, cursing Rome once again. She will be back. Octavian would then annex Egypt as his own personal property, later visiting the mausoleum of Alexander the Great, and laughing at his pathetic life. For when Alexander became king, he was 20. When Octavian was adopted by Caesar, he was 19. When Alexander took 13 years to conquer the shithole of the East, Octavian took the same time to subdue the entire Mediterranean. And while Alexander's empire disintegrated the nanosecond after he died, Octavian would lay the foundations for the greatest empire in human history. And so, to commemorate his victories, Octavian celebrated 3 triumphs. The first for finally bringing the barbarians of Pannonia
for Augustus.
Heel. The second together with Agrippa for BTFOing Cleopatra in Actium.
Even just missing the full name of Octavius.
Egypt, marching Cleopatra's children in chains. Present in these triumphs was his nephew, Marcellus, Octavian's chosen heir, together with his stepson, Tiberius, whom hated triumphs, hated people, hated being alive, but he was Octavian's stepson, so he had to act apart. But just as Octavian's unrivaled accomplishments and republican virtues made him popular with the plebs, so had he driven his enemies to the edge of envy and resentment. They were revolted by the existence of someone so perfect, even more so one whom they owed their lives to. Unable to bear the thought of Octavian returning to Rome triumphant once more, a conspiracy was born, led by Lepidus the Younger, with...
Bye guys.
Nah, just kidding again. With the civil wars now truly over, Octavian demobilized 32 of his 60 legions, paying their retirement with Egyptian gold and keeping the other 28 legions up to secure the provinces. To thank the gods, Octavian built a temple to Apollo, while Agrippa built a pantheon for all gods. It would later be renovated by Hadrian into the form we see today in Rome. You know,
Oh,
while he wasn't busy either killing Jews, building walls, or fucking twinks. It was in this time that
okay.
the Aeneid was written by Virgil, a magnificent historical document that detailed the entire
Nero and Virgil in the same fucking video. Okay.
saga from
Sorry.
Aeneas' departure from Troy to Octavian's rise to power, displaying Rome's divine destiny to civilize the world and bring forth an eternity of order. And now, with peace having been brought to Rome, Octavian could finally resign his consulship, knowing that he did his part. But once the Senate heard that he planned to resign, they begged him to reconsider, falling on their knees and imploring their master to keep giving them orders. Some men are truly servile by nature. Octavian was reluctant, having no real desire for power. But if the people of
reason-
Egypt, Spain,
Is it J to go backwards? Okay. Synthetic element, 10 seconds ahead. Keep forgetting that's a thing. I expected, when I heard him retiring, I expected them to, like, start scheming something behind his back. I don't know.
claimed him so indispensable, then it was his duty to answer their call. In 27 BC, the Senate convened to grant Octavian 10 years of proconsular authority over Egypt, Spain, Gaul, Syria, Cilicia, and Cyprus, together with the 20 legions in them stationed. And to cement his authority, they granted him a new title. Octavian's full name from there on would be Imperator Kaiser Divi Filius Augustus,
There it
the Princeps
is.
of the Republic, and the first Emperor of the Roman Empire.
Wait.
The Princeps would be Imperator Kaiser Divi Filius Augustus,
Augustus,
the Princeps
okay.
of the
I'll try
Republic,
to remember that.
and the first Emperor of the Roman Empire.
Nice beard.
And now that the Republic's institutions had been
Some gray
safely
hair.
enveloped into the imperial fold, Augustus, as Rome's first emperor, set about the arduous quest of stabilizing the empire's borders, starting with Hispania, whose border guard just
Is this
had
also
to be
copyrightable?
and Augustus didn't care how many illnesses he caught while doing it. He then had to scorn Messina's away after he revealed some information about a plot to his wife, making him untrustworthy. But he had bigger problems to deal with by then, like that ultra-lethal typhoid fever he just contracted now. Laying on his deathbed, and with Marcellus being way too young, Augustus proclaimed Agrippa to be the one to succeed his office as princeps. But just as his life hanged on the balance, his medic brought the urn containing Caesar's divine ashes, using it to heal Augustus from his fever. Once healthy again, Augustus oversaw another set of reforms to his
There's way too
position.
much magic
He
in
had
this
no need to be granted
episode.
continuous consulships, but humbly asked to be nothing more than a permanent tribune and proconsular authority in whatever province he physically found himself in. And what's a better way to celebrate it than to have your intended heir die of food poisoning, killed by your own wife, no less. Why did you do it?
Oh
To have
no,
her son
the
Tiberius be
romanity.
the heir, of course. Whom Augustus always kept at the bottom of
His
his list
stepson?
of potential heirs. And with his daughter now widowed, Augustus remarried her to Agrippa, with whom they would have 5 children, among them Gaius and Lucius, whom Augustus adopted as his heirs. In his next step to stabilize the empire's borders, he set to deal with Parthia, as had once Crassus, Caesar, and Anthony. Augustus' approach was swift and simple. First, he sent Tiberius to restore Armenia as a client kingdom, then started to deploy more and more legions on Syria, then contacted the Parthian king, offering him a choice. He could either return Crassus's eagle standards and agree to peaceful relations, or he could refuse, and have war against the full might of a united Rome with vengeance in their eyes. As you can see portrayed here, the Parthian king then returned all eagle standards and ran back to his desert shithole. And in order to prevent any further conspiracies while Augustus settled the empire's problems, he created the Praetorian Guard. The historians in the audience know well where this will lead, but let's enjoy it while they were loyal
Is that why you're purple? Are you connected to those fellas, Mr. Dawah?
bodyguards, because they won't be for fucking long. But Augustus himself would remain uncorrupted, constantly spending his fortunes to build roads throughout the empire, making so that all roads led to Rome. But there was another issue, beyond the realm of the provinces. It was the hard fact that Rome had become a degenerate cesspool of adultery. Long gone were the traditional conservative Roman families with a strong father and an obedient mother that birthed many children. These days, most Roman women just spread their legs for anything resembling a dildo, refusing to have many, if any, children at all. As a man far ahead of his time, Augustus predicted that such degenerate behavior would eventually bring forth the destruction of the state. So Augustus used his powers to reward all families that maintained their virtues, and punish those who didn't. Not that his anti-degeneracy policies achieved much. It was a lost cause by then. But not for his stepsons Drusus and Tiberius though, both of whom married and had their own kids. Among them Germanicus, named so for his father's victories in Germania. What victory?
Did you have a son with somebody? What the hell? Alright. I'm first of all, names spelled like that are difficult for me. Maybe just me. It's I don't know. Uh, just spelled with V instead of U's, but pronounced like U's and U's and A's and stuff. Um, Also because they are Roman names, it's a bit more difficult to remember them than just like not just Roman names, but Roman names of the past. It's more difficult to remember than names that are there that are in the world nowadays. Also, there are a lot of them. I remember nothing.
Curious, you ask? Well, you see, after Alleged got defeated by
Sorry.
some invading Germans in Gaul, Augustus had had enough of the barbarians up north. As he surveyed a map of the northern provinces, he concluded the ideal imperial borders were defined by the Danube and Elbe rivers, providing a near impenetrable barrier from the lawless lands beyond. And so,
Okay.
Augustus set towards the quest that would consume the rest of his natural life, civilizing Germania. For this enormous task, he sent both of his stepsons, Tiberius and Drusus, whom assisted each other in finally conquering the Alpine tribes for the empire, extending its borders
So far,
to include the
Tiberius
provinces
wasn't
of
too
Raetia
bad.
and Noricum. In Raetia, the brothers quickly learned of the Germanic unwillingness of being civilized, expelling as many Germs up north as they could. And while they do that, tell me, you remember Lepidus? He just died
No.
about nowish, so Augustus inherited his title as Pontifex Maximus. Just saying. And say,
Okay.
do you remember when Augustus conquered Pannonia? Yeah, he sent Agrippa to mop up some resistance there, only for him to be secretly poisoned by Livia and die just like that. The loss of his
No.
most trusted general and closest friend broke the emperor's heart, and it was
Damn.
all downhill from here. To secure his family's integrity, Augustus made Tiberius divorce his wife and marry Julia, whom he hated for being an adulterer whore, but the emperor didn't know, so didn't understand why Tiberius was complaining so much as he took command over Pannonia.
Oh,
All while
that
Drusus
sucks.
spent his days campaigning over the Rhine, slaughtering all Germs he could find between
He was fighting against adultery, but then made his stepson marry a whore because he didn't know. That's kind of ironic, but sad anyway.
it and the Elbe, including the Cherusci, whose prince he took as hostage. And while he would have him killed if he could, Drusus hoped that if a Germ could be brought from a young enough age into the legions, fought alongside Romans and lived alongside Romans, then he would eventually be civilized. And so, that boy would be
Yeah.
raised as a legionnaire, given the name Arminius.
Alright, that's foreshadowing, I
Back
guess.
in Rome, Drusus' success was greatly scaring Livia, as he robbed the emperor's attention from her favorite son. And while he was busy renaming a month after himself, Livia bribed a soldier into her service, sending him north. And while Drusus took a stride through the woods, the assassin suddenly knocked him off his horse. Mortally injured, Drusus died a few weeks later, leaving his family at the hands of his eldest son, Germanicus. Drusus' death was yet another heavy blow for Augustus, but by no means the last. Maecenas' death came soon after, leaving him with no old friends to speak of. And to make matters worse, the Parthians were meddling with Armenia once again, and when he sent Tiberius to deal with it, he refused, and exiled himself to Rhodes. Why? To get away from his whore of a wife, that's why. Whom Augustus just didn't realize for
Understandable,
who
to
she
be fair.
was, banishing her and all her lovers from Rome. But
To
thankfully,
generous
the
like
emperor still
you
had his
belong on the cross. Yes.
grandchildren to rely on, so he
Jesus.
sent Gaius to Armenia instead, where Livia would bribe his own soldiers to kill him during a siege. Lucius would later get infected with a fever by Livia's orders while in Gaul, and also die. Postumus, following Livia's advice, grew up to be a vicious little cunt, so he had to be
Oh.
banished. And Julia the Younger, also listening to Livia, became as much of a degenerate whore as her mother, getting banished as well. Livia forgot to ruin Agrippina though, and so Augustus happily married her to Germanicus. But now that Livia had deprived Augustus of just about enough potential heirs, he was forced to recall Tiberius to Rome as his heir, whom, after hearing of Julia's banishment, had no more reasons to exile himself. The only
Oh.
condition was that Tiberius adopted Germanicus as his heir, so that the empire would be ruled by Julians again after him. Yeah, Germanicus won't be long for this world. Back to the
Yeah.
provinces, Augustus later sent
That
Tiberius
was
to
my
Pannonia,
fault.
where a huge rebellion had broken out.
Oh,
And I
shit.
do mean huge. 1,000,000 rebels, like fuck me dude, later sending Germanicus to help crush it, alongside most of the empire's legions. During the revolt, Arminius would distinguish himself as a competent and loyal soldier, later being
Alright,
promoted to
that's a
serve
lot of
beside the
quotes.
new commander of the 3 remaining Rhine legions,
Oh,
Publius,
jeez.
Quintilius, Varus.
That's a new look for the armies. Okay. course. I see you despise him, my man.
With the conquest of Germania so close to being finished, Arminius took this chance that most legions had been sent away, to show his true colors. Maintaining his farce, he convinced Varus to let the German tribes host a cohort each for the winter, having them all slaughtered in his back. Later telling him of a fake rebellion in the north, deep inside the Teutoburg forest. Honor-bound and dismissing his officers' alerts, Varus went down the path Arminius had suggested, crossing a swamp-wild olive formation, surrounded by dark forests, and right into his ambush. With a genocidal drive inherent to their being, the Germanic hordes overran the Romans, slaughtering all the defenseless soldiers, hunting down the survivors in the forest, lives sacrificing the officers to satiate their evil gods of chaos, and destroying every last shred of civilization the Romans had brought with them beyond the Rhine. Betrayed and beaten, Varus grabbed hold of his sword and took his own life. When news of the catastrophe reached Augustus, the emperor was broken for a final time, traumatized by the sheer evil displayed by the Germans. He secluded himself in the imperial palace, stopped eating for days and shaving for months. His mission to civilize Germania had failed. The ideal imperial borders would never be reached. Forever the Germans would remain as the irredeemable enemies of all that is civilized and good. As his last years passed by, Augustus would occasionally lay on a dark
I feel like forever is a bit harsh, but
corner
okay.
of the wall and scream.
Varus. Oh, Cointus Varus, give me back my legions!
Alright.
At the height of his depression, he would pay a secret visit to his last living grandson, Postumus, who had by then repented of his violent ways. But Livia quickly found out and chose to secure her son's position as heir once and for all. As Augustus traveled through Italy, he passed by Nola, the city his biological father had died in so long ago, eating away the figs he so enjoyed. But by then, his wife's poison had already kicked in. Augustus struggled as long as he could, but he continued to lose strength, his mind slowly wavering. After a lifetime of transforming Rome from a city of bricks into one of marble, he whispered,
I'm very surprised that with a very bad health he managed to live this long. Hopefully I'm not mistaking him for... That was him, right?
his final words. Have I played the part well? Then applaud as I exit.
I don't want to clap it too long, just not to annoy anybody. Okay. Do you have any kind of epilogue? Probably not copyrighted song again. Okay, I guess that's it. Now I managed to fool this many of you, make it really celebrated, but the next part of this never runs on Caligula and Nero, so fuck it. Play it for the bottom of my macaco heart, whatever that means. The coming of Caesarism breaks the dictature no, of money and its political weapon, democracy. The sword is victorious over the money. The master will subdues again, the plunderer will. Okay. What was it? The Mad Emperors. Ooh, that must be interesting. But good things never last, do they? I guess the Mad Emperors were in the middle of the screen and I didn't see it. But anyway, yeah, like Caesar was doing quite well and then got betrayed. Augustus. Is it Augustus? I hope it is. I hope I pronounce it now correctly. Octavius was doing very, very well. And I guess he surpassed every other emperor of any, well, he's the first emperor, any other ruler before him, even if he didn't reach the maximum he wanted, didn't hit his dreams and stuff like that. But still, this story is not as sad as Caesar's one. Actually, it's not as sad towards the main focus of the story, which is Octavius, in comparison to Caesar, who got betrayed and killed. But it is still very, very sad because, like, all of his heirs, his children, his grandchildren were killed and stuff like that. Also, I do believe you could civilize the germs the way they tried, but maybe if they took people from even younger age. So as soon as they were able to talk, there wouldn't be a single German word they knew, like that young. So they would be pretty much born already in, well, not born. Immediately after birth, take the German kids, and then you can civilize them. But who knows? They probably will never try it, judging by the forever uncivilized kind of comment he said after that failed. Anyway, amazing video. I don't think I've ever heard about Octavius. By the way, I'm not sure. The commenter's name is Svet, which, is it T? Yeah, it is T. So Svet, which could mean light in Russian. That could be a Russian person. It could also be short from Svetlana, which is a woman's name in Russia as well. Or it could be something completely different. I don't know. I can't do anything. Let's be fair. Anyway, thank you. Anybody who watched this, I appreciate it a lot, and I hope to see you next time. Goodbye. Have a great life, because one of us has to.